If you haven't heard me say this before, I love water. I love the ocean. Being here on this paradise island with you is more than my dream come true. I have always been called to water in one way or another, and my deepest comfort and sometimes terror comes from sitting at the water's edge. Whenever I sit down at a seaside or river's edge, memories of other trips to other water places, my personal thin or holy spaces, tend to meander through my mind, flowing as images of my younger self, reveal the long and winding twists and turns of the river of life. And I can't help but reach out to touch that little child or young adult I once was and tell them to relax and go with the flow. I remember as if it were yesterday, standing by a riverside, holding onto a fishing rod, hoping against hope that I would be able to somehow catch a fish. I didn't want to touch it, just saying. I had come well prepared and yet not prepared at all for what I was about to encounter. Earlier in the week, my father had presented me with my first fishing rod. And throughout the week, he had instructed me and refreshed my siblings in the fine art of casting lines. Instead of hooks, I had little weights tied to the end of my line. And over I practiced, releasing my thumbs from the lever on the reel at just the right moment to send the line out across the lawn. I could hardly sleep the night before my first fishing trip. Now that I was big enough to be included, I worried I wouldn't have the courage to put a worm on my hook and wondered if I would manage to impale myself with a hook. I can almost see that little child I once was tossing and turning on the top bunk as she hoped against hope that she would catch a fish. But not just any fish. I longed to hook a really big fish, a fish to impress my dad. No one told that little child that fishing is a waiting game, which requires the kind of patience that few children can muster. I can see them staring at a little red and white float, waiting for movement, determined that at any moment a fish, a really big fish, was going to come along. There were many riverbanks and lots of fish caught, some big, some small, all of them interesting. Not beautiful really, but interesting. I liked catching the small fish, which could be released back into the river to fight another day, even though there was no way I was going to touch one. Eventually, other things captured my attention. Dragonflies darting here and there, birds singing, grasses blowing in the breeze. There was so much to discover by the river's edge. My elder siblings were wisdom purveyors, explaining every mystery until that little child began to tire of life on the shore. Eventually, I gave up fishing in favor of diving in. I can see that little child splashing in the water, laughing and giggling as I played for hours and hours in the river. I remember once trying to stand still as the river's current threatened to knock me over. I wondered where the river might take me if I couldn't keep my balance. And just as that little child is about to fall over, the image of a confident young adult emerges from the depths, and I roll over on my back and begin to float upon the water, staring up at the clouds, content just to be me on a summer's day so long ago. And as the summer's day gives way to evening, I see a less confident image of myself sitting on a shore, staring up as the sun sets, wondering, filled with questions about how and why, longing to fish out of the river or the sky the answers to my endless questions. I wonder when I stop looking to rivers or the sky or the ocean or the mountains and all the creatures who live upon the earth so that I might find the answers to my questions. I can't quite pinpoint the moment when I stopped searching for answers in creation and began searching in libraries. One after another, each book caught me rather than me catching them, but still searching for answers. Sometimes the books would give way to the wisdom of teachers, scholars, mentors, and folks whose faith was stronger than mine, hoping against hope that this one or the next one would provide answers to the mystery which lies at the very heart of reality. Looking back at this long, meandering journey, I can't help but see that I've been searching for answers my entire life. Whether it's fishing or studying, I'm still that little child longing to capture the really big fish, the one which is the source of all and the one who is mystery. I wish I had held myself a long time ago and told myself to relax. There's no need to catch a fish or follow the trail of some creature. There's no need to harvest knowledge from books or seek wisdom from the wise ones. Just go with the flow and let the river take you. I remember once long ago watching a fish flounder on the shore, desperately trying to stay alive, when the wind drove the current on shore and suddenly the fish was carried back to the river. The salvation of that fish brought tears to my eyes as I longed to be able to simply be carried away like that. For the fish lived and had its being in water. Water flowed in and around and through it. The answers to the mystery which lies at the very heart of reality are all around us. For as our ancestor Paul said some 2,000 years ago, the mystery, the one Paul called God, is the one in whom we live and breathe and move and have our being. So as I touch the little child or the young adult that I once was, I hope the person I continue to become will have the faith to go with the flow of this river of life, this mystery in whom we live and move and have our being. And when from time to time the current runs swiftly, I hope the person I am continuing to become will have the wisdom to remember that the river itself flows in, with, through, and beyond me, and that I find the courage to drink deeply from this living water, which is the mystery at the very core of who we are, beloved hosts and reflections of the divine presence. So next time you find yourself by the water shore, splash about a bit. Life in the river is far more exciting and life-giving than any of the answers you might be able to capture. So splash about and play in the one who is our lover, beloved, and love itself, the one in which we live and move and have our being, the one who lives and breathes in, with, through, and beyond us, now and forever. This is part of our story.